Niche research. This is huge. This is super important. And it's gotten kind of weird. So if you've looked at Amazon recently, you may have found that as you dive into different niches, that you end up seeing these kind of monoculture pages where there's already a ton of publishers there and all the books look kind of the same. I wonder if maybe they're all using the same agencies or providers to make these books. It's really, I think, confusing for customers and very difficult for publishers. And it's crazy. So I will not help you win in this kind of situation. But I can help you win, nevertheless, in other situations by looking at niche research in a different way. So who am I? Why should you listen to me or care about anything I say? I've been doing this for a while. I've made over $1 million in KDP royalties, and that represents over $3 million in book sales. And I have a different perspective. So here we go. So we're going to jump into this and look at 6 different ways. Sounds like a song. That you can develop a niche, or rather find a niche and then start developing it. And the antidote to niche hopping, is to develop a brand. And that's a longer term strategy. And it's better. You'll make more money. You'll probably have more fun. It'll be less stressful. It'll take a little longer to develop, but the rewards will be so much better. Okay, so let's jump in. This is what people typically do now. So people use software. Maybe you use software. I know I have. I've tried it before. It didn't work for me. The going wisdom is to look for keywords and then to niche down. And I consider that to be chasing niches. And the results are usually a red ocean, because there really aren't. I mean, there may be a new niche that pops up every once in a while, or an undiscovered niche, but they don't stay undiscovered very long. And again, you end up with this kind of thing. Another way, and by the way, I'm going to go deep into each of these, so I'm just kind of touching on each of these so that you know what's coming. Okay, the second one is to look for opportunities to niche down, and it's related to the first one, but it's a slightly different strategy. And this is really dependent on market sophistication, so I'll go deep into that. Another way to find a niche, at least to get a toehold, to get a chink in the armor, is to look for a weak book and to see if you can exploit that and make a better version, because you have either better skills or some other resources that you can bring to the table. Okay, the next one is to look for repositioning opportunities. And this is such a good one. I love it. And I will explain that. That's basically reinterpreting a book concept from a different angle. Okay, the next is going to be on Amazon products that need books. Now, this is kind of an interesting one. It's called product support. It's been around for a while. The 4 Dummies series of books is basically this. And what I've done is applied that to products on Amazon. And then there are off Amazon trends that if you can catch early, then you can be the first. And there's definitely first mover advantage. So those are the 6 different niche finding ways to start your business, really. I mean, to get in there and eventually develop a brand. All right, so let's dive in. So here's some general rules that I have for myself that I think are useful. And for all niches that I look at, when I'm looking for myself and also for my coaching clients. The very first thing is to check profit margins. So you need to be able to make enough money to pay for advertising and food. Okay. So if you're going into low content or some other kind of niche where the book price is too low and you're not able to make any money, that's really difficult. It's much harder to do that than to find a niche that has a reasonable profit margin so that you can run your business. So what do? Well, you check the average price of the niche, the average page count and dimensions of the book, like is it a 6x9 or 8.5 by 11 or whatever it is, whether the pages are color or black and white, and whether there are a high amount of graphics or if it's mostly text or all text. If it's text, it's pretty cheap and easy. And if there's a lot of graphics, then that's going to affect your production costs, which can be in the long run, a very small part of the equation. So really these top three are the most important ones. So how do we check that? Well, easy. You go over to the KDP royalty calculator and you type in page count 150, let's just say 150. Let's just go for normal trade size and a list price of $14.99. And with a book like that, you've got a pretty good royalty of $6 on paperbacks. And by the way, I really don't even look at Kindle so much. For me, it's always been a very small part of my income, my revenue. So this is really more about nonfiction than fiction. So fiction is a completely different animal. But for nonfiction, paperbacks usually generate 80-90% of the revenue, and Kindle just seems to be there, to help and provide additional revenue and help with reviews and some promotional stuff. And then I also use Kindle to kind of annoy people so that they buy the paperback instead. So I do that by keeping the price of the Kindle high so that people just think, I might as well, pay the extra money and get the paperback. So that's how you can, make sure that your margins are good enough. Now, just so that you can see the difference here, if you are doing the same book in color, and let's say premium color for whatever reason, I won't go into that. Okay, so you can't, Amazon does not even let you do that because your minimum price would have to be at least almost $18. And let's just say it's standard color. So you're still making an almost reasonable amount. Yeah, I would take that. So that's possible. Standard color is workable if you keep the page count kind of low and the price relatively high. Okay, so that's how you check profit margins. The second thing you need to check is, can you advertise this book? And then what are the advertising costs? So let me give you an example of a book that you cannot advertise. And there it is right there. So we've got a couple of books with swear words. So you cannot advertise swear words or stuff that is against Amazon's policies, that is perhaps profane or vulgar or not suitable for kids. Because kids look at Amazon, and if they see your ad, then someone's going to get upset. So I'm kind of resting on this because here we have a couple of books that have, this one's doing pretty well. All right, good for you. But this one is not. This is 500,000 whatever sales rank. And this author is kind of caught in a bind because Usama, I think that's a guy. So Usama he's trying to sell the book for not very much money. He probably only has maybe $1 in margins on this book, and he can't advertise, and he's not selling much. So with something like this, you're really shooting yourself in the foot your margins are low, you can't advertise. What are you doing? Right? So you've given away two of the huge advantages that you must have in order to win at this game. So don't do that. Okay. And then what are the keywords advertising costs? So some keywords cost more than others. It depends on how competitive the niche is. And that's something you simply need to be aware of. I mean, you'll get used to it and you'll be able to know pretty quickly. So how do you find the advertising costs? Well, you do that in the Amazon advertising console. And, some keywords cost more than others. You could be paying between 30 cents per click up to $1.50, or I've even seen higher for certain keywords. And it's hard to make money, when the advertising costs are super high. Okay, the next thing is to avoid trademarks or brands or high-risk topics. So let me show you something that, okay, this is Weber Grill Cookbook. And I saw this book, and whoever you are who has done this book, Angeline, please stop advertising it. And you should probably immediately take down this book. So this author is kind of, I don't know what is causing this author to do this, probably a lack of knowledge or skill. But look, you've got a horrible ranking, horrible reviews. They're not good. No one's going to buy the book. And you're advertising. And this is a competitive keyword. I think that this author is probably paying, oh God, there's another one. Oh man, that's 2 chances at losing money. You know who's making money here is Amazon. So every time someone clicks on one of these, Amazon is going to get at least $1. And the author is not, unfortunately. The other thing that's happening is that this author has opened herself up to a lawsuit from Weber Grill, or at least, a call from Weber Grill's lawyers over to Amazon, who can very quickly shut down this account, take down the book and shut down the account. So if you happen to be seeing this video, Angeline, please stop advertising. You're just throwing your money your way and you're taking a lot of risk. Okay, so that's trademarks and brands. Next is high risk topics. And so that's, how to do brain surgery at home, right? So you don't want to do anything that could potentially cause harm, or that someone could do something stupid and then claim that you're responsible and then sue you. So just stay away from those kinds of things. Okay, do you like the niche? This is really important because ideally you will be spending a lot of time in the niche. So I'm talking, a few years to develop your brand. And if you don't like the niche, then you won't understand the niche. And if you don't understand the niche, how are you going to sell more things to your customers? Because ultimately that's what you want to do. You want to sell them more stuff. Okay, and then the last universal rule, or whatever it is that I have for myself, is to make research a part of your routine. So you need to become an expert in your niche, because if not you, then who? It's not going to be your assistant. They're not as invested as you are. So you need to hold the reins on this. One of the things I like to do is to take screenshots. So let me show you what I use. Whoops. I use this thing right here. Go Full Page. It's an extension for Chrome and it's free. And you can take a long screenshot like this instead of just the part that shows above the fold. Okay, so let's get to the next one. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into each of these, and then we'll finish up with examples of a brand. Okay, keyword research. So this is what most people do, the great majority of people. And a lot of people do this with software, which I do not recommend. You don't need software. In fact, software has a tendency to hide things from you, and you need to bring your brain to this because there's a lot of competition. There are a lot of other publishers out there that are probably using the same software and have learned the same techniques. So you have to bring your creativity and your brain to this game. That being said, this is still useful for anybody. And the basics that everyone, I think, pretty much agrees with are you need to check for high demand and competition. You don't want too much competition. You need proof that other indie publishers are able to compete in the niche. Check the number of authority books and the sea of zombies. So this is what I call the books that are cluttering up the space. This is all your competition that is not selling. And they are, some people think you can ignore them. Other people think you have to kind of climb your way through them. I think it's a combination of the two. In any case, the sea of zombies definitely affects your ability to advertise, and it creates a lot of noise. So, they are definitely a factor. And then finally, is there an obvious way I can win? So this is what I bring to, this is my question. I always ask myself, is there an obvious way I can win? If not, then, look for another niche, another keyword to focus on. So let's go through some examples. And let's start with chair yoga. So here's a kind of a red sea that we looked at earlier. And how do I know, first of all, if there is demand for this? So one way is to, look at the search bar. Are there a bunch of suggestions that come up and that makes sense? That niche down into various niches that, that are common, that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't, it's not like chair yoga for 60-year-old dogs or whatever ridiculous thing. I've seen crazy keywords and it just happens sometimes. Like if you start, adding an A and then a B and then a C, then you start getting into the really tiny, low demand keywords. So what I'd like to do is just see what the main keyword is and then what Amazon suggests off of that. And then we may go a little bit deeper. So seniors. So that's one way to check demand. Another way is to make sure that there are some books that are selling well. Now, in order to do that, the only software you need is DS Amazon Quick View. I have it installed here. That's this little thing right here. It's free. And it works in Chrome. I think it works in other browsers too. Not too sure about that. But it's really useful, especially if you have fast internet. I don't. I'm in France. I'm in the country. And the internet is slow here. So that's why a lot of this information isn't coming up. But you can still get the idea. So what you want to do is check to make sure that in the keyword that you're searching, that there are at least a few books that are selling well. So this one, this one's selling well, 39,000. Anything under 50,000 is reasonably well. 30,000, 31,000. So there's 3 books right there that are selling well. Here's another one. Just scanning here. Most of these are not selling well, but maybe a handful are. So what that indicates to me is, exercises. Well, that one's selling even better. Chair exercises. So maybe that's a better keyword. I don't know. Let's just have a look at that. Exercises for seniors. This one's interesting because I'm noticing a lot of, so let's go back to here. So we've established that some books are selling well and that there are auto suggestions. So that's a pretty good indication of high demand. The other thing that we need to look at, is keyword density and relevance. And that's partly competition and partly whether the keyword is profitable or that there's demand for it. So here, these are sponsored, so I'm not going to take those results to heart. But what I am looking at are the organic Okay, here's the organic chair yoga. So it doesn't look like there's too many organic positions or results here that are, oh no, actually, I take that back. Chair exercises, that's what we are checking out right now. So chair exercises for seniors. What we want to do is look for keyword density or relevance. So that means that this keyword is in the title of the books that show up on this page. So 2 of these books have the title. Here's another, here's another, here's another. And are they selling? A couple of them are. Chair exercises. This one is selling pretty well. 7,000 sales rank. Easy chair exercises. Okay. Well, give me the hard ones. And okay, so there's a few. So there are fewer books selling well under this keyword than under chair yoga for seniors. But, you know, it could still be worth exploring. But the other thing that I noticed here is that the keyword chair exercises for seniors kind of fades out. There's a lot of chair yoga here instead of chair exercises, especially as we get to the bottom of the page. So that means that this is not quite as keyword dense. Perhaps that means that there's a better opportunity here than there is in chair yoga. So that's one of the things we look for. So keyword density, and then less competition is better. So 2 ways to look at competition. One is here and look at all the books with the title that has a keyword in it. And the other is here. A lot of people look at this. This is the results, and Amazon says that there are over 2,000 results for chair exercises for seniors. Take that with a grain of salt. So I assure you there are not 2,000 books with the title chair exercises for seniors. But it's kind of a broad keyword. And so what Amazon is looking at is, well, does it have most of these? Does it have chair and seniors? Because, or are there keywords that are related? All I'm saying is that this is an indication of how much competition there is. If you see 10,000 results, 20,000 results, really what that indicates is that it is a broad keyword and that perhaps you need to niche down a little bit more. But I wouldn't get too hung up on it. Okay, so are there other indie publishers? Well, yeah, there's a bunch here. My plugin is not showing them, but I know that they're there. So you can usually just scan over these things and see at the top, you can see that right there, independently published. Well, that one's not doing very well. It's not selling well, but this one is. And this is independently published. Okay. And then authority books. Is there a doctor or a celebrity or a big publisher or super high review count? Or, you know, how many of those books are in here? And I don't see any doctor books or celebrity books. Not noticing any big publisher books. Here's one with a bunch of reviews. It's doing super well. It's Rockridge, which is a really, really good publisher. Yeah, they hit it out of the park with a lot of their books. So, okay, so there aren't too many authority books, maybe just a couple. Okay, so in terms of, you know, green light, red light, high demand, yeah. For this keyword exercise for seniors, high demand, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Some books are selling well. Competition, the density and the relevance, there seems to be fewer books that have keyword density on this keyword than chair yoga, and a little bit less direct competition. Let's just put it that way. Indie publishers, yes. Authority books, not so much. Okay, let's look at the sea of zombies. So, this is fun. What you do is you look for books that have these kinds of rankings. $2.99. And when was this published? Okay, a couple months ago. So maybe it's still gaining momentum. But on the other hand, it's got reasonably good reviews. Look, 4.6 out of 5. It's got 59 reviews. So that's good. You should be able to, hunt with this. But for some reason, it's just not working. And this is a very optimistic publisher. Already 2 months in, terrible results, and they're still spending money on advertising. So I would say this is a zombie book. I'm sorry, but that's my opinion. This is probably a zombie book. It is a book that's dead, but the author doesn't know it yet. Dead book, doesn't know it yet. And the thing about zombies is that they just clutter everything up. So here's another one. Potentially another one. So if you see a lot of zombies, especially if they're advertising, where you would see this is in the keyword density also. So that's the other thing I should point out here is that this is a zombie because it's chair exercises. And that's what we're checking out here, chair exercises. So this is definitely a zombie. But this one, sit, stretch, and strengthen, it has chair exercise programs. So that could be a zombie or potentially heading there. Whereas chair yoga, if there's a horrible chair yoga book in here, then would it be a zombie? It's a loose definition. So just be aware of it, okay? And what happens is that your competition, other indies, and even authority books, big publishers, and then the zombies, they push up ad costs. They get in the way. They clutter things. Simply be aware. Okay, so the final question, the final criteria here is there an obvious way that I can win here? And to me, all these books, most of them kind of look the same. I'm not very familiar with this niche, so I'd really have to look at it in detail and find, is there an obvious way I can win? So some ways that some people try to do things is by providing a better quality book. Can you win that way? Well, I can come up with a lot of examples where there are certainly better quality books, but they're not winning. So for me, it's more about what is the angle that you can bring here? And, can you niche down? Is there a different way to approach it? So I'd have to look more closely to really come up with and to me, that's that next step. This is the big one. So, is a gap underserved? Then yeah, it's easy. If there's not a lot of competition, and if there's reasonable demand, then it's a shoo-in. Yeah, you can just publish a book and it's easy. If there's an obvious better version of the book or a unique selling proposition that you can bring to the table, then that can help. And then you battle it out with advertising and then see what happens. So I call this the standard way of looking for a niche. And a lot of people do this. Most people do this. And a lot of software is to blame for people showing up in the same niches and resulting in this. Okay, let's get to the next thing. Okay, the next strategy is to niche down. This is a distinct strategy from simply looking for a keyword. So it's very related, but it's important for this to be examined, in a very clear way. So this depends on the market stage. So according to Eugene Schwartz, who is a huge figure in advertising, the market usually has 5 stages. So stage 1, when there's a new product or concept, all you need to do is name it, and then people will buy it. So in this case, trivia book. Then competition enters, and then you have to differentiate. You have to start niching down. So historical trivia, space trivia. And then when it gets even more competitive, you might need to niche down even more. Space trivia for kids, right? So at a certain point, the market becomes saturated. And that's when you start seeing things like 13 books in one, includes videos, includes food. I don't know, whatever people come up with. And I think that in many of the niches, we're at this stage now. Then we get into market skepticism. And I think we are definitely heading into this with all the AI books that are being generated. People are just going to become so skeptical. So at this point, you need to have an institution or a celebrity that has their reputation on the line to come in, right? And then finally, when things are hyper competitive, then it becomes about brand trust. It's very similar to institutional trust. Brand trust, community, identity. So that's a big one. And we are not there yet, thankfully. So to show this in the cookbook niche, Mediterranean diet, right here. So Mediterranean diet, and people buy it. By the way, this is not necessarily chronological. I simply was looking for a good illustration, so I kind of made this up. Well, not entirely, but a couple of steps are made up. Like Snoop Dogg did not do a Mediterranean book, so don't worry about it. But this is to clarify, to illustrate this whole sequence. Okay, so the second stage would be when competition enters. Then you need to niche down. So Mediterranean for beginners. And then maybe a little further down the line, 5-minute or 5-ingredient Mediterranean diet for beginners. So just niching down even more. And then finally, when things get saturated, you get ridiculous things like this. Okay, 60 days meal plan, 2,100 days of, I don't even know what that is, 30-minute effortless for beginners. So yeah, good luck with that one. And then when we enter into skepticism, then someone like Snoop Dogg or some other celebrity, Rachel Ray in cookbooks, Oprah, I don't know, comes in and does a book and kills it. And then finally, when you have to rely on brand trust, then here's an example. So we've got the America's Test Kitchen and Instant Pot. So 2 brands that are trusted, and that book is doing pretty well. I mean, there are other books that are doing better, but this is the general sequence. Okay, the third way is to find a weak book and do a better version of it. So this depends on what you can bring to the table. And I actually did a throwdown video on these 2 books, where this book, How to Fight a Bear and Win, was the original book chronologically and conceptually. And then this book came afterwards. This is a book by Bill O'Neill. He knows what he's doing, and he saw a great idea that was weak, and he did a better version. So what makes it a better version? A better cover, so you get more clicks, better click-through rate, better copywriting. So that's in the title and the subtitle as well as everything else. So how to survive a freaking bear attack is so much more interesting than how to fight a bear and win. Sorry, it just is. More or better reviews. So if this original book had not very many reviews, or the average review was not very good, then you could compete with that, do better, and assuming you can get more reviews and better reviews. Advertising. So if the first book is not advertising, then perhaps there's an opportunity for you to come in, do a better book, and advertise. And that will automatically give you an advantage, which hopefully, if your book converts well, you can sustain. And then the final thing is whether you have a community or a mailing list or gosh, I just left something out here. A brand. That's a big one as well. So put that in there as well. A brand. If you have a strong brand, then that can definitely allow you to come in and take over whatever sales, the original book is doing. Getting back to community and mailing list. If you have, either of these, right? You can generate a lot of interest during the launch, generate quick reviews, and basically show Amazon that your book is better, more interesting, and will get more sales. And that's what Amazon wants. Okay, now things are getting interesting. This can be a life-changing strategy. To reposition an existing book or concept and bring it to the market in a different angle. So, things that you can do are you can take a technical book or academic book and make it popular. This is a perfect example of that exact strategy. I'm actually going to do a video on these two books and go into detail of, how one grew out of the other. I am not certain right now because I have not read these books, but I believe that both of these books represent essentially the same concept, but they are presented in a different language. I don't mean English, Spanish language. I mean a different language as in this is very workbook, academic, and this looks very accessible. So let's just have a quick look at that in detail here. Got a bunch of other examples. Here we go. So I believe that this book was the original book and that this is a copycat. Well, that's a harsh word, but basically this author, I believe, was inspired and then repositioned. So there's circumstantial evidence that shows that that's the case. That's the titles are almost exactly the same. The published dates show a chronology. So what this book had, which I believe was a weakness, is that it looks like work. It looks very academic. It's therapist recommended. So I would be running away from this book as quickly as possible. Whereas this book, it kind of brings the same concepts. And by the way, this could be about Buddhism. And, clearly this is about CBT, but this book could be about CBT. The important thing is to focus on the idea of repositioning. So academic, popular, right? So the words are different. The way that it's explained is different. The image is different. It's more accessible. It's less intimidating. And to prove that this worked, this became a sensation on TikTok. And you had young people, you had kids showing this book in TikTok videos. They would never have done it with this book. Just wouldn't happen. So this author, Joseph Nguyen, did a master stroke of repositioning, and I'm sure that his life has completely changed because of it. So there's a huge amount of opportunity here, I believe. Another example is to cross to an adjacent niche. So from kids to seniors, here is an example of that, this little coloring book here. This could easily be a kid's coloring book. There's big shapes, thick lines, that kind of thing. And they just added the words big print and senior, and there you go. Different positioning. And so we can go business to personal, self-help to corporate training, historical to inspirational, or entertainment or whatever. So here's an example of historical to entertainment with Bill O'Neill. And this book is doing pretty good. So repositioning, this is a huge opportunity, but it takes a lot more work. It requires more brain power. You cannot give this to an assistant. This is something you have to come up with, and you can do it. It's being done, it's being done a lot. And not only for books, but for all sorts of products in the market. And this has been done for decades and maybe even longer. So this is about repositioning. Okay, the next strategy is to find products that need books. I call this product support. A good example is the For Dummies series. They do a lot of books on products like software and even cooking or other things. But they basically started off, I think, with software, and that is a great niche to start with. So is high tech. So are products in many different niches. And what you need to look for is a product that costs at least $50 to $100 so that it's an easy thing for the buyer to think, oh, this is complicated and I don't mind spending an extra $15 for, a book that'll show me how to get the most out of this expensive item that I just bought. So, the product needs to be complicated so that you can add value. And that's pretty much it. So an important thing here is to stay away from trademarks. I think we already covered that with the Weber grill example. Let's go back to this book and pick on it a little bit more. Yes. So this is a product support book. And you don't want to do that. You need to stay away from trademarks. So, So here's a few examples in the kitchen category. So look at this thing. What is that? That's crazy looking. How do I use that? It's probably expensive, so maybe I should buy a book for that. Here's another product. That's an air fryer. And there's a lot of product support books on air fryers. Here's another weird gadget. What the heck is that? So that's the idea. It's like when you see something that's selling, oh, this is another important part of it, is that it needs to be selling. That should be number one. The product needs to be selling, otherwise there's no demand. So that's super important. And the final one is to do off Amazon research. Look for new products, new tech, new software, new trends, social media trends. Use your awareness to find what is up and coming and that is not yet represented on Amazon. So think of it this way. There are already markets right now. There are groups of people that are passionate about something that need to learn about that thing. But there aren't any books yet on Amazon because it just hasn't reached that point yet. Or no one's really kind of opened that up yet. So those are the markets that you need to find. And you can use things like Google Trends. That's an obvious one. But there are other websites out there that give you more kind of detailed research, based on social media and that kind of stuff. So, that's easy to find. You can do that. Just go out and do it. So the advantage here is if you are a first mover, you can create breakthrough profits. You are often rewarded as a first mover on Amazon. Here's an example of somebody who caught the ChatGPT wave, early on, and combined curiosity about ChatGPT with the kind of secret question that everyone had. It's like, can I use this to make money? And so, great book. I haven't read it. I'm just saying that the concept is great. And first mover, well done. Okay, there you have it. Those are the 6 ways to find a really good niche that you can then become an expert and dominate. And what I'm going to suggest is that you need to be the expert. You need to be the niche expert if you want to make a lot of money on Amazon. So consider this, someone farms that out, delegates it to an assistant that they found on Fiverr or Upwork or whatever, right? So that person is not as invested as you are. So why would you want to give one of the most important skills and parts of your business to someone who's not as invested as you? The other thing too is that, Amazon has gotten a lot more competitive. And so I think that we're at the stage now where hopping from niche to niche, like a bee going from flower to flower, used to work, but I think that is so difficult now that a safer bet and a more resilient and richer way to go is to become the expert and to dominate the niche. So I'll show you a couple of examples of that in a minute. The goal is to develop a brand. So we've already talked about For Dummies. They have such a strong brand. The nice thing about developing a brand is that when you sell your company, because you can now, is that the more defensible it is, like the stronger your brand, then the more it's worth. So it's such a good thing to do. You'll make more money. You'll be able to sell it more easily. You will have all the advantages that everyone else misses if they don't have a brand. So here's the way to do it. Try different niches. Double down on the niches that are successful for you. Develop your own customer base. So that could be email and following on Amazon, right? Because you can follow an author, so you want people to do that. And build your brand. Okay, so a couple more examples. In the cooking niche, there is ATK, America's Test Kitchen. Almost everything that they publish is a bestseller. They're really incredible. They're a strong brand. People trust them, and they buy their books. And then in the trivia space, Bill O'Neill. Yeah, the guy's a master. He is doing really well. So let's look at a couple of examples of people that are doing it right. Okay, let's approach this from scanning a bestseller list. So this is not my category, this kind of alternative medicine thing, but I found a great example. Look at this. This kind of stands out. 12 Laws of the Universe. First of all, brilliant marketing. But if you look at the author, you find out this guy, Manhardeep, this guy is great. He's got an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. He knows what he's doing. Spiritual guy, but with a business degree, and he has taken a lot of popular sort of spiritual concepts and packaged them in a way that creates a very strong brand. And he's got multiple of these kinds of brands going. So fantastic example. I am a fan and I'm going to follow him. Look at that. Boom. So that's developing a community. Here's another example looking at the trivia category. This guy right here, Bill O'Neill. Let's go to his page. And I'm already following him because I like his books. And he's got, oh, he has so many books that are doing so well. He has built a brand. He dominates this niche. He has a huge fan base. Every time he releases a new book, Amazon sends an email to his followers. And he probably, I would imagine, has an email list. And he knows what he's doing. So those are examples. That's what you want to head towards. So I hope that was useful. When I first started out, I did a lot of keyword research. And even afterwards, even years later, I tried going back to it. And I never made money from it. It was very difficult, and it just didn't work for me. It wasn't until I broke out of that way of thinking and started looking at niches in a different way that I started making money, and then I made a lot of it. So I'm hoping that you can do the same thing and learn from my experience and my mistakes. If you need any help, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I try to answer everybody. And if you'd like to book a free 20-minute coaching session with me, you can go to my website and reach out. I'm only doing that right now. I probably won't do that forever. But I'm really enjoying talking with new students, and it's a thrill for me. I love talking about this stuff. So there you go. More videos coming soon. I'm easily reachable. You know what to do. Talk to you later.